This is the Cycling Over 60 podcast, Season 3, Episode 3, Fitness by Donna, and I'm your host, Tom Butler. Thanks for joining me for this week's podcast. Here's a brief update before this week's conversation. I spent a lot of time on the exercise bike this week and started ramping up my road riding. I'm still having some very light residual pain in my left knee, but I feel pretty confident that I'm good to go. Every little pain I get right now triggers concern for me, but I'm recovering well after my rides. Currently, I am very motivated to keep up with my flexibility exercises. I need to somehow have it etched in my brain that I have to keep up with the stretching. As I mentioned last week, I do 52 miles this weekend, and I'm confident that I will know how my knees will hold up around the 40-mile mark. I'm going to be very disappointed if I'm feeling pain at 40 miles, because I know the smart thing would be to call it quits then. The problem is that this is the first group ride that we're doing as a whole family, and I definitely want to finish it. I'm not going to want to admit any pain during the ride because then I will have both my wife and daughter pushing me to make a safe decision. Part of the motivation to err on the safe side is that I can't take much more time off the bike and still make my 2024 goals. I was banking on my goals being met with the miles and elevation from a ride across Washington. Now that I didn't complete that ride, I don't have much flexibility. I still need 1,215 miles to complete my mileage goal. That means I probably have around 93 hours of riding to get in before the end of the year. I can't plan on the weather being decent in December, so I need to do the majority of that in 2 months. I don't think I can make it unless I put in some long rides on the weekends. I also still have 30,600 feet of climbing to do. I'm going to try and change my main training route to be 2,000 feet of elevation. That way I should be able to reach that elevation goal if I do that ride twice a week. I have become convinced that the metabolic dysfunction that led to my insulin resistance also meant that I have negatively impacted how my muscles utilize energy. This season of the podcast, I'm on a journey to confirm that this is true, and through personalized medicine, find ways to improve it if it is the case. I recently watched a video done by Global Cycling Network, also known as GCN, focused on creatine. I have to admit, I have had preconceived notions about what creatine is for. As I listened to Connor Dunn, one of GCN's hosts and former Irish national champion, discuss creatine, I got more interested in it. So I did some research and I've started taking it. I want to make it clear that I am not recommending creatine for anyone, but I will share my opinion about it with you. You should always consult a health professional before adding supplements to your routine. The creatine supplement I found also contains HMB. Again, I'm not recommending HMB to you. I did find the information on HMB to be really interesting. So my plan is to try these supplements for 30 days. I have a quarter-mile climb that is 14% grade that I will be riding regularly. I think that climb will help me assess whether or not these supplements are useful. Of course, it's really hard to factor out a placebo effect because I will obviously know that I'm taking the supplements. I guess I will just have to face the whole experiment with a healthy dose of skepticism. What I hope that creatine will do is increase the effectiveness of GLUT4 to fuel my muscles. GLUT4 is one of the family of glucose transport proteins. GLUT4 is in the cell and helps to transport glucose into skeletal muscle. I believe that there is some evidence that I'm having a hard time getting glucose from my blood into my muscle during intense exercise. After I checked out if there were potential problems with taking creatine, I decided to give it a shot to see if it might make a difference. Hopefully creatine or something else will help me because I need to burn a lot of glucose over the next 3 months if I'm going to make my 2024 goals. Before I move on to the conversation this week, I want to again plug the Cycling Over 60 Strava Club. It's a great place to interact with other cyclists and see the rides people are doing from really interesting places. Thanks everyone currently in the club for sharing your journey. I get a lot of content about cycling on my Instagram feed, and I am happy about that because I don't always like what I get. For some reason, at one point, Instagram thought I wanted to see traffic accidents. I hated that content, but I really like the brief videos from Donna Meier on her channel, Fitness by Donna. She does a lot of cycling, and I just really enjoy her positivity. I reached out and Donna joined me for this week's discussion. I am joined today by someone who I've gotten to know through Instagram. Thank you, Donna Meier, for coming on Cycling Over 60.
Thank you. Over 60 sounds really old, by the way.
I don't know. It seems to me like it gets younger all the time. So,
Well, yeah, if you stay in shape. My question is, why not over 50? When did you start this? I'm going to interview you for a minute. When did you start this?
That's fine. So, a couple years ago, I was in pretty bad health and I decided to turn it around. And I had set a goal to do a 206-mile ride, 2-day, 206 miles after I turned 60 years old. So that's kind of cycling over 60 came out of that. But I believe that you should be cycling, over 40, over 50, and over 60.
What was the ride you did or that you planned on doing?
It's called Seattle to Portland, and I did complete that. Yeah, it's a fantastic ride.
That'd be pretty. My son lived in Seattle for a while.
Okay. There's a lot of great places to ride around here, but that's a classic ride here and super fun. Now, you're a fitness coach, and I believe you have your own studio. Is that right?
I do. That's what's behind me.
Okay.
Studio. This is my training studio and my spinning studio. I'm also a spinning instructor. My small studio, actually. It's a studio, a fitness studio.
Okay. And you're on Instagram where you share a lot, and I'm inspired by the sharing that you do, by the way. And I believe you're an avid cyclist from what I see.
Yeah, kind of avid, bordering on obsessed.
Okay, nice.
Yes.
So I'm really looking forward to getting your perspective on staying active and fit later in life. But first off, what is your earliest memory of the bicycle?
Oh, wow. Well, I grew up in a neighborhood here in South Miami, South Florida. I have a twin sister and an older sister, and there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other girls about our age in the neighborhood. And our only mode of transportation at the time was our bikes. So we used to ride to the store and we rode to school. And, I've always had a bike. And then by middle school and high school, those days were gone riding to school because, the fashion choices had changed. The shoes had changed. We didn't want to get sweaty. So pretty much the bike was out of my life until I started when I was 40, I bought a bike, but that's a whole nother story because I started running in my 20s and then I had kids and then I bought a bike in my 40s. I bought a mountain bike, actually.
Did you grow up in a family that was focused on fitness?
I'm going to say no, because my generation, and it makes me feel really old, but no. I mean, my parents, no, I think my dad started jogging. I don't know if you remember when Jim Fixx came out with The Joy of Running or something. It was a book. I think it was The Joy of Running. Anyway, I think he dropped dead of a heart attack, by the way. But my father tried jogging for about a nanosecond. My mother played tennis a little bit, but no. We lived on Burger King. We played outside all day with our friends. We swam. We were on little football teams. We didn't watch a lot of TV because there was only 4 TV stations. So it wasn't fitness per se as we had to do it on purpose. That was just our life. We didn't sit on our butts all day.
So you mentioned that you got into running in your 20s. Talk about that. How did you get attracted to running?
How did I get attracted to running? Well, just trying to find a way to stay in shape. Not that I ever really had like a big problem, but it also made me feel good. So I started running. When I met my husband, he's really athletic. He played high school football. He played momentarily for University of Miami, but he was super athletic and he was a runner. So I started running with him for about 10 years and into my 30s. And then I started doing 5Ks, 10Ks. I did a half marathon and I like it. I found it. And plus I was busy. I was trying to have kids and one thing led to another. And I realized that the people that were riding by me on the bikes looked like they were having way more fun than I was running. So after my half marathon, I ran a little bit more, but then I decided to buy a bike because my husband was doing a adventure race. He did one in Australia, one up the Appalachian Trail, and one in China. And so he was training, doing some serious adventure race training. And I was busy raising the kids and I was kind of jealous. And I started thinking, I could do that. I could do that because they had one female on the team, especially the one in the Eco Challenge in Australia, that I felt like I could do that. But, my kids were young and I just couldn't do that. So anyway, when he got back from Australia, he said, you should buy a mountain bike and we'll start riding together. So I bought a mountain bike and I was not good at it at all. So that was the end of the mountain bike, because once I saw the Tour de France in about 1999, I realized that that's the kind of bike I wanted. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to ride far and I wanted to ride fast. So I sold the mountain bike and bought my first bike, road bike, and joined a team.
Oh, nice. So d- can you talk about that first bike? Do you remember it?
You sure? Yeah, it was a Trek 1500. It was pretty heavy. I think it was aluminum, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to work the gears. And I decided I was going to do my first century. And I did. And it was horrible. And I was all by myself. But I learned everything kind of the hard way. Nobody ever sat me down and said, this is how you work this gear, and this is how you work this gear, and this is how you change this and that. So anyway, long story short, I joined one team, and then I joined another team and another team. I mean, for the past 25 years, I've kind of ridden early on, mostly with all male teams. Because, back in the day, there wasn't a lot of women on the road. There wasn't even female cycling clothes. I had to wear like junior size 16. Yeah, there's a lot of women out there now, but I rode with mostly men. So I started kind of riding, and mostly South American men, all from Colombia and whatever. So I started kind of riding. I learned how to ride like a guy. I know that sounds weird, but I wasn't scared of anything. And I just went, and I was fearless, until I had a couple good crashes.
Okay. How did your family feel about that? Were they pretty supportive of your racing?
Yeah. Well, I didn't, I didn't race anything. I thought if I raced, because a lot of people said, you really should race because this might be your thing. And I thought it would take the fun out of it. So I didn't really race per se, but every ride was a race. I don't know if you understand what that means, but here in
Yes.
Miami, the cycling community is extremely passionate. So yeah, every ride was a race. But my family, I couldn't be gone too long on Saturday and Sunday. Actually, I only rode on Sundays because I taught spin class Saturday and I didn't ride during the week at all. So they were okay with until I started crashing and breaking bones. That's when my daughter was like, "Could you find another hobby, Mom?" And even my own mom was like, you think you could find another hobby?" So anyway, there's been some crashes and some broken bones, but for the most part, it's been good, and it's been healthy. It's been really good for my mental state, and it's good for my business because spinning, riding, training, it all feeds into one another. So it's just been really good
Well, you might
for
find
me.
it interesting that I have a Trek 1500 hanging in my garage.
Do you really?
Yeah, that was a bike that I got early on, and then I stepped away from cycling for a long time. But it fondly sits in my garage, and I can get it out every once in a while and
Do you
ride it.
ride it? You should.
I have ridden it a few times. It's just, it just doesn't compare in so many ways
Yeah.
to the Specialized Rebate that I have, but it's
Oh,
a
nice.
fun kind of nostalgic ride to get out on it.
Okay, my question is, how many bikes do you have?
Well,
Come
um,
on.
if you uh, are you saying as a family or as a
No,
personal?
you personally.
Okay, so I only have three bikes right now.
Only?
Yeah,
Wow.
so
I have one.
um,
I have
okay.
one, and a couple months ago, I had to take it into the shop, and I have the Shimano um, cranks that were recalled.
Oh, right, right.
So they had to send the cranks away. It took about a week, but I nearly lost my mind because I only have one bike. And when the bike is down, I'm down. So, but I'm on my fourth bike. I had a Trek, I had a Felt, and I had a Cannondale that I sorely missed. But the frame, I got in a crash and the frame cracked in places that they couldn't fix. So I had to get rid of that. Right now, I ride an Argon 18 Gallium, which yeah, no bells and whistles, no Di2, no disc brakes. It's just bottom of the barrel bike. But I've had it for 4 years, and I figure at this stage of the game, I mean, there might be one more bike left in me, but I'm not sure.
Now, I'm curious if you tackle your bike maintenance or if you prefer to take it to someone else.
Well, it depends on the severity of the issue. I I clean my I keep my chain and my drivetrain as clean as I can. I can change my own flats. I can take my wheels on and off. But anything more complicated than that, I'm trying to think what I did last. Well, that's about it. The crank recall was a big deal, and then we had to replace, which I couldn't do, obviously, the rear bearings in the back wheel. But other than that, I can't. I mean, I wish I could do more of my own maintenance. My husband and I put on a new chain, which wasn't too difficult. But other than that, it's just hard to find a good mechanic, number one. And it's also hard to get rid of your bike because, like I said, I only have one bike. So I wait to the very last minute to repair it. And even then I kind of push a little bit. I don't like to be without my bike.
You mentioned the spinning class, and you do personal training and
Uh-huh.
coaching. How
Uh-huh.
did you get into that?
Wow. Well, I had my last child when I was 35, and I had always been working out, but after I had him, I gained a lot of weight. And he was a gigantic baby. He was almost 10 pounds. And I couldn't, after I had him, I just could not lose the weight. So I figured, you know what, it's time for me to change the way I work out and change the way I eat. And I started watching, there used to be these exercise shows on ESPN. So I started doing them and, changing my eating. And I really, after some months, I started taking my youngest one, the one I gained 50 pounds with, I started taking her to preschool, and all the mothers used to look at me and go, God, how'd you get in such good shape? And I'm like, well, I started calling around to gyms. I thought, I'm not going to give this information away for free. So I called around to gyms to see who certified their personal trainers. And they told me I got certified, and just by luck, we had a gym on our property that we had built after Hurricane Andrew in the early 90s. I think it was in the early 90s. Yeah, 92 was Hurricane Andrew. We built a gym, and the gym was just sitting there. And so I thought, you know what, I can bring people here and work them out and charge them. So I put an ad in a local community paper, and I got a bunch of phone calls, and I started training people like a week later. And I have to say, most of the people I started training 25 years ago and spinning and coaching, I still have 25 years later. So it's been a really, I mean, it's been a really interesting journey. But I started training, and then about a year later, I bought 2 spin bikes just to give my clients another option for cardio. And then one of my clients is like, you should buy more spin bikes because people come here for spin classes. I'm like, I don't think people come here. Anyway, fast forward, I eventually had 12 spin bikes. I had waiting list classes only. And then COVID hit. I mean, we're talking years later. And that pretty much thinned out my clientele, on top of which we sold that house and we moved about a mile away. But my gym is much smaller now. I only have 5 spin bikes. I only work part-time now, but for 20 something years. And like even working part-time, I still have most of the same clients I started with. So it's been a really interesting evolution, training and spinning and coaching.
Sounds like a really fun thing to kind of follow people's progress. And
It is, and it is, and it isn't, because years ago I was a bartender, and I kind of liken it to bartending without the alcohol, because everybody wants to, they train, but while they're training, they're talking about their life and their problems. And I mean, I've been through births, marriages, deaths, divorces, babies. And I listen, and so while they're training, they're getting their therapy session, kind of. So I liken it to, like I said, bartending with no alcohol. It's fun, but sometimes every once in a while you get a client that it's just, you can tell it's not going to work. They're just too impossible. They're too cranky. They're just too difficult. And those, I think I've had to fire 3 clients in 25 years.
well, that's not terrible. 3 in 25
No,
years
that's not
isn't
too
too
bad.
bad.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
that's not too bad.
What makes for a good spin class?
Well, can I just preface this by saying, I'll tell you what makes for a bad spin class,
Okay, gotcha.
because I've been to many spin classes, not just mine. And I've been to spin classes where they jump up and down with their hair on fire and yell and scream. And some of them take the seat off and you have to stand the whole time. And they do the craziest stuff. I was certified in spinning by I don't know if you know who Johnny G is. He basically invented the spinning bike. Spinning is, a copyrighted name. He was a South African endurance racer. He used to do races across the United States on his road bike. And then his wife got pregnant. And so he couldn't do that. He couldn't train far. So he built like a prototype of his bike to sit in the garage. Anyway, that became the first spin bike. So I was certified in spinning, which means you wear a heart rate monitor. You don't jump up and down. You don't do stuff that you don't do on the road bike, and safety is paramount. And so that's how I was certified, and that's still how I teach today. We don't jump up and down. We don't do crazy stuff to destroy our knees. We don't. And now I see spin classes where they take their hands off the handlebars and do all these weird things with their arms, and they lift weights while they're spinning. I have one spin class where we do lift weights, but we stop pedaling. We sit or get off the bike, lift the weights, put the weights down, and then get back on the bike or continue spinning. No, I think a safe spin class is one where you're just we go on flat roads, we climb standing, we climb seated, and really that's what we do. We don't do crazy stuff. So for me, a good spin class means a safe spin class, and that doesn't mean you're not getting your heart rate up. By the way.
I was interested, one of the Instagram posts that you put out, you talked about how things have changed a bit as you've gotten older, and you talked about like staying up late at night or maybe staying up and having a little bit too much wine, that you can't do that anymore without consequences. So it seems like there are those things that we need to take in consideration as we age. How do you think about that?
I think as obviously as you get older, your body changes, but I also think your brain changes. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying there's a lot of things that I do on the bike now that I wouldn't have done before. I ride a lot by myself. I go out and it's all about the workout now. It's not about racing around the city of Miami. But no, I go to bed. I'm usually in bed between 8 and 9 o'clock because I wake up early. But yeah, if I have that extra glass of wine, my superpower used to be, I could wake up, I could get 3 hours of sleep. I could have had a couple glasses of wine and I get on my bike and I ride like a crazy woman. Well, I can't do that anymore. My body doesn't metabolize alcohol like it used to. So I have to be, much more mindful of that and try and, keep, you know, drink lots of water, hydrate, but also I don't want to feel like that. I want to feel good when I wake up. So yeah, things definitely, after 25 years, things have changed, but it doesn't mean that I still don't enjoy it, but I don't enjoy going out and having that extra glass of wine and feeling like crap the next day anyway. So it all works together. I'm not missing anything. So yeah, and you have to keep your diet pretty clean, and I try and keep my weight where I'm, comfortable on the bike. I guess if my bike is they say the best way to get a faster bike is to be lighter on the bike, because I'm not going to go out and buy a new bike right now. So I'll get lighter on the bike instead of getting a lighter bike. So, all those things. And then, in your 60s, things change, and it's okay. I'm fine with all of it. Really, as long as I can keep riding my bike and my body performs, and I have no injuries, knock on wood, and I stretch and I feel good and I'm staying strong. I really feel like I'm 45 until I look in the mirror and I go, oh yeah, it's the skin that's the worst, because you're out in the sun and you're, here in Miami. You probably don't have that problem up in, are you in Seattle, outside of Seattle?
Just, yeah, south of Seattle a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. You probably don't have that, but here it's, hot and sunny. So yeah, no, that extra glass of wine doesn't happen that often anymore.
Now, you've benefited from something that is about consistency. You've kind of stayed with it, I think, since you were in your 40s. I think that's fair to say.
Hmm.
And can you talk about the importance of that consistency?
Well, I'll just say, when I rode on a team, an all-male team, a Colombian team, for about 7 years, and every year we would have an awards banquet. And guess who won best attendance? Me.
Nice.
Always, rain or shine, Donna is there unless there's a hurricane or lightning. And I ride more now than I did 10 years ago. I ride Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I'm riding more now than ever, but I wouldn't have it any other way. it's the best way to start my day. And it makes me feel good. It makes me feel strong. It makes me feel accomplished. It's a great habit. It makes me sleep good at night. I mean, it keeps everything healthy. I don't know. I will be consistent. I'd be the first one to get kidnapped because somebody knows where to find me because they know where I am all the time because I do the same thing week in and week out on my bike. So yeah, I'm very consistent. I'm very disciplined. I'm very dedicated, and it's the best habit that I'm glad I found.
Do you think that consistency has kept things in shape so you're less likely to be injured or something like that?
Well, consistency with a couple things. I mean, I weight train, which helps keep your joints strong, keep your strength up. But I also stretch. I mean, I'm not great at it, but I do stretch. And I've had some injuries, but nothing that just happened. It was because of crashes, broken collarbones, ribs, pelvis, but never injuries just from like. I mean, I have a little bit of a issue with my meniscus in my right knee, but it comes and goes. And I've been taking some supplements for it. It seems to be helping, but yeah, that's really about it.
Well, a broken pelvis is not a small thing. That must have
No,
been.
actually, it was broken in two places. No, it wasn't a small thing. It hurt. Actually, when they took me to the ER, the radiologist came in and says, you have a healed fracture in your pelvis, and I'm like, I've never broken my pelvis before. She goes, yes, you have. I said, really? And I think I did it hiking. I think I remember when I did it, but I just kind of kept going. But this one was a little worse. I was on the treadmill. She said the best thing to do is I mean, I broke three ribs and my left collarbone at the same time, but I had to watch what I did because it hurt to walk. But she said the best thing you can do is do weight bearing exercises to start the pelvis, I forgot the word, regrowing basically. So I still taught spin class, but I walked on the treadmill at 1.1 miles an hour. No, 0.01 miles an hour. I hobbled on the treadmill, and each week I'd go a little bit faster. But my clients know what to do during spin class. I just tell them, and and play the music, and they know what to do. But by within 4 weeks of breaking my pelvis, I was back on my spin bike, and that was weird. And then I think after about 6 weeks, I got back on my road bike. I stayed away from a lot of people. I was very nervous, and the crash really, I hit a pothole, which is the stupidest thing on the planet. But I went down like a ton of bricks at 20 miles an hour. So anyway, so I don't have a lot of injuries. It's just from crashes, not from weakness. I mean, weak muscles or weak joints or anything like that.
And again, it seems like, you know, that's something that comes with consistency. You're keeping things strong and also maybe just being consistent with technique and really being disciplined as far as how you're doing things. Is that
Well, there is such thing as overuse, which, I probably could be accused of overusing my joints, but they're all doing good. I mean, my hips don't hurt, my knees don't hurt. I'm a little tired sometimes, and my body feels tight sometimes. But yeah, I think overall, if I quit for, I mean, there was another time I got injured. I think I was off the bike for almost 2 months, 3 months, because I got a frozen shoulder after I broke my collarbone. It was horrible. That took a while to come back from, but I was younger. I was in my early 50s, so I was younger. No, I hope for no more injuries, and I'm just like I said, I do the same thing week in and week out, and I listen to my body, and I try and, if I'm tired one day, I go a little bit slower, like a recovery ride if there's ever such thing. But yeah, I just kind of listen to it. But I think you're right. Consistency has probably been key.
you talked about weight training, and I'm wondering how you speak about the role of weight training to clients.
Well, since I train only women and, they're getting older as I'm getting older because they've been with me for so many years, muscle mass is imperative as you get older, especially as a menopausal woman, imperative. I mean, you need to keep your bones strong. You need to keep your joints strong. The muscle that you build will help you burn the calories that, they talk about that menopausal weight gain, whatever. I mean, between the cardio and building the muscle and eating plenty of lean protein, that's, That's my mantra now for my clients, because most of my I have clients, maybe the youngest one's in her mid 50s. My oldest client's just turned 80. She's 86, and she's been
Nice.
working out for 21 years. Yeah.
Awesome.
So as women, we need to keep our muscle mass, and it's very hard for women to keep muscle mass after menopause. So the weights have to get heavier, the diet has to get cleaner, and the protein has to get lean, and you got to eat it at every meal. I don't know what else to say about that. It's just imperative to work out. Yep.
When you're talking about eating lean and quality and everything, that's not the typical American diet.
No, it's not. Ultra processed food is the typical American diet, which is why there's so much obesity, diabetes, cholesterol issues, heart issues. Oh yeah, no. The cheap food out there is the way to go for a lot of people. But eating lean doesn't mean, I eat lean turkey, lean chicken, lean fish. I eat a lot of hard boiled eggs. I eat a lot of hummus and salads and vegetables. And don't get me wrong, I like my French fries. But I try and do the 80-20 thing and keep my diet as clean as I can, but I can't eat that. That crap doesn't make me feel good. I don't that fast ultra processed food does not make me feel good. And it doesn't make most people feel good. But I don't really think that they understand how good they can feel if they just switched up their diet and just started put on some sneakers and start walking. It's really that simple. Maybe not. Maybe it's not that simple. Maybe that's why we have a problem.
Well, I'm imagining that you do still get asked a lot about how you stay fit. Am I right about that?
I get asked, but I think people go, "Oh, you're lucky. You're just skinny." And I'm like, yeah, I put a lot of effort into what I do, and not to be skinny, but to be healthy. No, I just, people, that's a very interesting subject, because, a lot of people don't want to hear the truth about how to eat healthy and how to exercise healthy. Because it really, when I explain it, it really sounds pretty easy, but it's not, because people get in, it's a lifestyle choice. And some people don't want to change their lifestyle, so it can get especially for the women that I've worked out in the past, it can be a very emotional issue, eating and weight gain and making excuses and never having enough time to take care of themselves because they're taking care of everybody. It's just it's a very complicated issue, especially with women, and maybe with men, but I don't work men out. So
Well, I think it is a important observation that there is an emotional component
oh
to
yeah,
it. There is a
oh yeah,
cultural component to it, and it does get complicated.
very. I mean, I live in Miami, and it's you know it's there's a very Latin, obviously, influence here in Miami, and the Latin diet is lots of white rice. I have a client who buys a 20-pound bag of white rice once a month, and they eat it all. I can't demonize white rice, because you can have a little bit. I mean, I eat sushi; it has white rice, but 20 pounds a month, oof. No, the culture here is definitely, the diet is not the most healthy on the planet. But there's a lot of information out there for people. There's really no excuse to not learn how to eat somewhat properly. You just do your research and start learning and teaching yourself. It's all out there. You have to just go get it.
You have made staying fit a priority in your life, but I'm
Yeah.
guessing, like anybody, like everybody, that that was a choice that you had to make. Do you have any thoughts about what has been successful for you in making it a priority? You talked about having kids, and there's school and there's activities and all of that. How is it that you were able to prioritize that over the years?
Well, when my kids are little, they're all in their 30s now. But when they were little, like I said, that's when I only rode once a week. I rode on Sundays, but I spun probably, I taught like 6 or 7 spin classes a week. So that was enough cardio for me. But as they got older, I was able to ride a little bit more. And then they all, went off to college, and now they all have their own lives. So it's a priority, but it's also a priority, not just physically, but, there's been times in my life where I've definitely struggled with depression. And let me tell you, there's nothing better than exercise for depression. It's better for you than meds. And the lasting effect is far better. And the byproduct of getting in shape is the reward. of all that. So it's definitely mentally and physically important to me to this day.
It's an interesting thing for me because those times when I'm feeling down or I'm feeling kind of, you know, maybe out of it or whatever, a little bit tired, like the hardest thing is to actually get out the door. Once I get out the door and start pedaling, there's this real transformation.
Right. It's like you're one workout away from a good mood. You got to fake it till you make it. Just, I don't care unless you have COVID, which that's one time I didn't ride. Even if felt like I was kind of getting the flu or I had kind of a migraine thing coming on, I tell you, I get on the bike and get home within 2 hours and I feel like a new person. There's something about the hormones and the endorphins and everything, getting your blood moving. It's just, it's to me, it's the best medicine. I mean, I wouldn't advise that to everybody, but for me, it works.
How is the cycling environment in Miami? You talked about there's a bit of a cultural element there. Is Miami working on creating safe spaces for cyclists? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, the place I ride, if you Google it, it's called Key Biscayne, and it's a little island off downtown Miami. And there's, bike paths, painted green, and they're trying. I mean, several people have been killed. I mean, it's pretty sad, but I think they're trying. But the problem is there's so many little cities attached to each other, and they all make different decisions. So you can be on a bike path in one place, and all of a sudden it disappears because suddenly it's another like little municipality or whatever. So I think they're working on it, but Saturday and Sunday, I mean, I can't tell you the amount of cyclists in Miami, and in the past 20 years, it's just become more and more and more crowds. I mean, when I go out on Tuesday and Thursday morning out on Key Biscayne, which is about 30 minutes from my house, there's pelotons and pelotons full of people riding at 6 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's just the cycling community is very strong in Miami, but there's a lot of drivers here that they all have their own rule book. And you have to be very defensive and very careful. And it's funny because this morning I was riding and it's pitch black. When I leave my house at 6 a.m., the sun doesn't come up till about 7:15, so it's pitch black. I have two white lights on the front of my bike and two blinking red lights on the back of my bike. There's so many people out there riding with no lights on their bike. I'm like, I almost ran into a guy on a bike because he had no lights and I came up on him. But, people have to also, they can complain about the cars all they want, but if the car can't see you, what are they supposed to do? So there's also the cyclists have to be just as responsible as the drivers here in Miami. And that's probably the biggest issue because there's been some really bad cycling accidents here, really bad.
Yeah, it's always tough to see something like that. I love supporting efforts to raise awareness and to get protected lanes and everything.
We have none of that. Our lanes are right next to the cars that fling their doors open. It's surprising because Miami's is so, international. You would think that by now we would have some great cycling infrastructure. And we do, like I said, in some places, but it's not continuous through each city. So it's kind of sad. So it'll be a while. I mean, they have plans to do something on Key Biscayne where I ride, but these are 10, 15 years off. But Miami's grown so fast and it's so crowded and the traffic is so bad. You just have to be really careful.
Now, when you're working with an older audience, it sounds like that's a lot of your clients. What have you learned about the importance of recovery, either from a hard workout or from injury as we age?
Well, I just to preface it by saying I don't work out, I don't train athletes or older athletes. The people that I work out and train are just everyday people. I don't know if that sounds weird, but I do not train athletes. So as far as my clients go, their workouts aren't really hard enough to warrant some sort of recovery, and none of them have ever been injured that I can recall. But as far as taking rest days, I mean, for me, it's an impossible task. Taking a rest day, recovery. I mean, I'm definitely more tired than I used to be, but I used to ride much harder than I ride now. I mean, I still ride hard when I want to. I'll jump in the back of a group or whatever. But I mean, we used to ride 3 hours nonstop, 25 miles an hour and faster. I mean, which is crazy. So recovery, I mean, I don't know. I get on my bike, I recover. Sometimes I ride slow. I get on my spin. My spin bike is actually, when I teach my 5 classes a week, that actually is my active recovery. So as far as recovery goes, my clients don't really need recovery. They don't work out enough to warrant it as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they lift their weights and they do their cardio and they go home and they live their lives. And that's really the bottom line. They just, want to get their activity in. But as far as an athletic view on recovery, that's a whole nother story. Yeah. And, an injury, that's a whole nother story. But like I said, I haven't had any injuries except for the ones from crashes and those heal themselves over time.
One thing that you've shared on Instagram is your interactions with your mom.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could talk a bit about that, if you feel comfortable talking about that a bit,
Sure.
and maybe kind of what perspective that has given you as far as health is concerned.
Well, as a matter of fact, I went and saw her today. She's 86 years old. She has Alzheimer's. She's in a assisted living facility. She's been bedridden for 4 years. I mean, it's been a slow 13-year downspin for her, and not realizing the dementia and the Alzheimer's was going to get so bad. But she doesn't even know who I am now. But she never really ate healthy. She ate a lot of sugar. She never worked out like as a rule. My father died from Parkinson's. My mother will die from Alzheimer's. And the neurologist years ago looked at me and basically said, "You're kind of screwed. You got Alzheimer's on one side, and Parkinson's on the other." He said to stay hydrated and keep working out. And that's not really the reason I work out, but it certainly is part of my motivation. I want to keep my brain as healthy as I can. And who knows? I mean, the lady that my 86-year-old client that's been training with me for 21 years, when she wasn't working out with me, she was walking, 5 miles a day. And about 2 years ago, dementia set in. So you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, I'm hoping that what I'm doing can help my later years. I don't know. I have an identical twin sister that doesn't work out like I do, doesn't ride, and she has different health issues than I do. But being that we're identical twins, it'll be interesting to see what happens because our DNA is 99.9% identical. So there's a science experiment right there. But yeah, the brain disease is I think about it a lot.
Do you have any thoughts about what are some common misconceptions about staying fit later in life, or starting a fitness program after 60?
Yeah, people think you're too old. I don't know what old is, and I can't even believe I'm 64. I say it to myself. I'll be on Medicare in what, 9 months, 8 months. I feel that I tell people. I said, there's no reason not to do something, and it couldn't be easier than putting sneakers on your feet and going out for a walk, cleaning up your diet a little bit. But the more you move, the better you're going to feel. And I don't care when you start; it's never too late, ever. Yeah, it's never too late. I mean, I'm baffled by people who sit all day and don't feel good, and then they don't understand how good, as I said before, they don't understand how good they can feel because they think working out is such a horrible thing that it makes them feel yucky. But if they started working out, they realize they would just feel so much better. But it takes a while. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. If you've been sitting around for 10 years, it's going to take some time to start feeling a little bit better. But, every day you get up and you have to just kind of commit to just doing something. And it doesn't have to be complicated or a big deal. It's just people don't know where to start and they think it's very complicated.
I've talked to so many people that have started getting fit later in life, and those first miles are,
They're tough.
they're tough, and it takes some persistence to get through that. You do have to have a vision that that there is something down the road that is better, for sure.
Well, yes. And it takes it. I mean, if they're consistent, it can take, like when I get a new client and they're fairly consistent. I mean, consistent, I'm talking about they see me maybe 2 days a week, sometimes 3 days a week, but they have to do something on their own. And if they're consistent within about 4 to 6 weeks, they might start noticing something. Maybe their pants get looser. I have a client who, she doesn't work out hard, but she just got her bone density back, and it was 9% better in her hips than it was a year ago. And she's been working out with me for about a year, and she doesn't do a lot. So I said, imagine if you did more, so little things can happen inside or at the cellular level or with your bones, or things that you can't like automatically see, like a bicep or a flat stomach or tight thighs, whatever. You may not see that right away. That takes longer. But the internal stuff and what's happening to your brain, these are things that, I always say, if there was a little window to your heart and you could look in there and see it getting healthier, with the weightlifting and the cardio, you would be so much more motivated. But, that's why I guess people get blood work and they can see the cholesterol come down, maybe their blood pressure come down, maybe their blood sugar come down. I had a client, her A1C came down. She lost 20 something pounds. Her A1C came down. She's kept it off for 20 something years, 15 years, with her, to get her A1C down. So these things happen. People, you can exercise your way away from your medications and away from feeling like crap, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can testify that that's happened with me. So, yeah, for sure.
Yay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. See, you can bear witness to what I'm saying.
Yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely feel like one of the really strong messages that I try to get out there is that I believe that I'm younger today than I was 2 years ago. And
Well, chronologically, maybe not, but physically
yeah,
and yes.
yeah, for sure.
How old are you?
I'm 61 right now. Yeah.
You're 61?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you're just
So
a baby.
that's right. That is true. Yeah, I'm just beginning the journey, so that's
That's
fine.
right.
I mentioned before that I discovered you on Instagram, and I really like your Instagram posts, and I find them inspiring and motivational and just fun. But I think it's really interesting to me, or puzzling to me, that you get criticism for posting. And I'm wondering what goes on in your mind when you get some of these negative comments. I saw one where someone called you a narcissist. And so I'm just curious, like, what is that like?
It's, what, at first it took me by surprise. I'm like, because nobody likes to be called names. And I tried to, like, because if I get, 500, fantastically positive comments and one negative, the one you remember is the negative one. And, it eats away at you. But I responded a couple times, and then I realize, and sometimes I try and, comment back to them, but their profiles are private. So they'll put it out there. They'll lob bombs, but they won't take comments back. They're just a bunch of cowards. But yeah, sometimes it bothers me, and it takes me a while to get over it. And then I realize, don't they have something better to do? Go get a life. Maybe they should start riding a bike, or they should start working out. No, so I try not to let it bother me. But the first couple, I got zinged a couple times, like, wow, I kind of didn't expect that. But that's when you put yourself out there, which I am doing, and I'm enjoying it, because I certainly didn't start my Instagram. It was just like a picture here and a picture there. And then one thing led to another. And I thought, okay, I'll start talking, even though I don't really want to watch myself on video. I started enjoying it. And then I started getting ideas and ideas and ideas. And I always have something to say, and I always have stories. So it just kind of caught on. But like I said, every once in a while I get zinged, and that's okay. I'm okay with it now.
I think one of the most humorous comments is, "Aren't you too old to bike?" I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it's
And I invited him to come ride with me.
I love that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, to me, it's so funny because here you are, obviously biking. You're posting about your biking, so
Right.
it's almost like, can't you see that I'm not too
Hello.
old to bike? So
Right.
I'm just really, to me, it says something about their concept of biking. Do you know what I mean?
Their concept of biking, and possibly their concept of fitness, because they're probably sitting behind a keyboard somewhere, miserable. But No, and sometimes it's funny because I get more nasty comments from men than I do from women. Women are so supportive. It's certain men that just don't want to see a woman out there possibly doing something that they can't do, or doing something better that they can do, or just even having an opinion or a voice. I've never gotten a negative comment from a female ever, and I get a
Well,
lot of comments. It's one of my observations, and I'm finding it more and more true as the weeks go by.
talk about women's professional cycling. I think that you follow it, and can you share your perspective on it?
I do, but I feel a little guilty that I don't follow it as close as I should. I started riding a bike because I saw the Tour, a road bike, because I saw the Tour de France in 1999. And it's when Lance was like a big deal, and it was, America was watching, and that's why I bought a Trek, and I went out there and I rode like a maniac. But I'm addicted to watching the Tour every year. And I watched the Femmes, the Tour de France Femmes, um, but not as faithfully as I watch the Tour de France. And I even got to see the Tour de France in 2015. I was on Alpe d'Huez in the French Alps. So I don't know. I got to say, I should support women's cycling more. It's hard to find on TV right now. Because I changed to YouTube TV and whatever. It's hard to find, but I know when the tour is on, I know where to find it. I just, at the Olympics, I followed the women's cycling for sure.
I think it's an important thing, that the that women's cycling, women's professional cycling gets more attention. I mean, you look at stories like Christian Faulkner, and there's
It was
really,
fantastic.
yeah, there's not really
What
any
a great
better.
story, right?
Oh,
What a great story. Yeah,
and you don't find any better stories than that. And
it's
I'm
true.
imagining most people have heard of Kristen Faulkner, but if you haven't, just go kind of look up her story and her Olympics and everything. It was just,
I think she went from riding, taking road bike classes in Central Park to being a pro and winning the Olympics, her gold medal in the Olympics within 6 years. I want to say
yeah,
something like that. It's
yeah,
amazing.
it is
Yeah.
amazing. And she did have, she was an athlete, so she did
Mhm.
have some good foundation to it. But I
Yeah.
mean, that's some very technical riding. And
Yeah, it is.
you know,
Yes,
and she
it is.
seems like a super bright person based on her academic accomplishments and everything, but smart, racer, fit, and it's yeah, a
I think
fantastic
the
story.
the stars all aligned for her that day, because I can't remember who crashed. I think she crashed or she got a flat. So Kristen Faulkner was able to get ahead, and then she was, like lightning. She just went, she was hell bent on getting to the finish line. So that was to me the best part of the Olympics. Really
Yes,
good.
yes. Do you have any cycling adventures coming up?
Well, no, every time I ride, which is like I said, 4 days a week, it's an adventure. I saw a shark this morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I saw a shark feeding when the sun was coming up this morning. Yeah, every time I ride, it's an adventure. But I have done many events in my past, many events. Um, Even rode through Tuscany, then, like I said, through the French Alps. I climbed Alpe d'Huez twice while following the Tour de France in 2015. So I've done a lot of cycling things, but no, it's just the adventures are Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Right,
And if I can
right.
get on Friday, those are my
Nice.
adventures. And I do the same route all the time. And let me tell you, each ride is completely different depending on, the weather, the wind, what I see. There's always something interesting out there every day. But like I said, today I saw a shark
So, Donna, how do people follow you in your adventures?
on Instagram at Fitness by Donna.
Okay, I will put a link in the show notes of that, by the way, so people
I mean, I
can
have
find you.
a website, but it's, I don't put a lot on it. That's more for business. But no, at Fitness by Donna on Instagram. Um,
Perfect.
I think it transfers to Facebook, but I don't really go on Facebook. So Instagram is where all the adventures go.
Perfect. Donna, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I just really enjoyed getting to know you and hearing about your cycling and about training and everything. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it too. I always like to impart my cycling wisdom, my old wisdom. And as you get in your 60s, you just suddenly feel like you have a little bit more wisdom you can share, even to for younger cyclists. But even I don't know if younger cyclists are interested in listening to a podcast called Cycling Over 60, but maybe they think it's over 60 miles an hour. What do you think?
I like it.
Over 60 miles an hour, then they would listen. But no, I like to impart my wisdom. So thank you for reaching out to me.
Well, have fun with all your cycling and take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye. I can't imagine what it is like to train someone for 25 years. The fact that she keeps clients that long is a testament that Donna is able to really connect with people and meet their needs. How fun it must be to see someone start out and get stronger and then see them keeping with it over time. Good for her that she is having that kind of impact on others. I will put a link to Donna's Instagram in the show notes. I'm also going to put a link to the bike company she mentioned, Aragon 18. I had never heard of it and looked it up, so I thought I would drop the link in for anyone else who is interested. As the days get colder and wetter here in the Northwest, I find myself thinking about how nice it would be to escape to New Zealand and ride there for a few months. It looks like November and December can be really nice in New Zealand. Maybe someday I will make it there for a cycling trip. Whether you are dealing with days getting colder here in the Northern Hemisphere or the opposite in the Southern Hemisphere, I hope you are having some fantastic experiences on the bike. Maybe even seeing a shark. And remember, age is just a gear change.